Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday morning trading room. I hope you managed all right without me yesterday. Hang on a second here. We'll get the screen share going. Looks like it was a fairly quiet day yesterday overall. Not much going on. A lot of sideways trading. Well, that's how it finished anyways. I suppose overall it had a slight bullish trend to it. This morning we're starting off the day almost where we started yesterday's session. So yesterday opening here around the 62.95-ish area. And that's where we are again. All right, we'll put that on the shelf for now. And we'll see whether we don't get some sort of indication of which way the market wants to go today. So far in the overnight, looking a little bit on the bearish side. And very often if we have an overnight trend, the market will try to reverse it. Normally sometime through the morning, not always right out of the gate, but usually sometime during the morning. That's what I'm looking for now. Okay, we might be getting a little bit more bullish. The hawk printing a yellow bar here. I have, as you can see, I have condensed my spacing a little bit on the chart just so I can get a little bit more of the history in. You'll have to let me know whether or not that's better or worse. If it's harder for you to see, I can certainly expand the chart again. Oh, actually, I guess that hawk signal also was a 4-arrow consolidation, wasn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4. And it looks like we got a little bit of follow through on that. The 4-arrow consolidation is the one signal I will take on the hawk on a yellow bar. And it's looking like that is having some half decent follow through so far. Also had a late filter entry signal here on the Falcon. For those of you liking those early signals, well, there's one for you as well. Way to go. Mark says he's in that late filter entry. And it's looking like that's working out pretty nicely so far. And now a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of a macro pullback here in the hawk. We'll see whether that's going to set the tone for the day or if that's just the sellers trying to gain control of the market. Okay, back into yellow bars here. Unless this develops into another 4-arrow consolidation, I'm really not going to be interested in it. The Falcon already changing its trend line color, so it's looking a little bit more bullish. The Raptor also into yellow bars now. Okay, we have a green bar sell here on the hawk. This is one of these early signals that you can either take the trade with trend. In this case, we would look for a retest of the low, Or you can even set up for the failure. And by the failure, I mean we're going to set up above the highs, and in this case, cover below the lows. And just look for a little bit of a hiccup there. Maybe the market try to get into that early opening range. Or opening gap, I mean. Or, if you're not sure about it, you can simply use it as an early warning that perhaps the trend is changing, and if it is, well, we're going to produce a first micro-macro cross signal as well. The Falcon also giving us a trend change signal already, so fairly active, a lot more volatility than we have seen lately, that's for sure. And now the first micro-macro crossover signal here on the hawk. So things starting to look a little bit more bullish, at least for the short term. I don't know if we can commit to a full-on rally just yet, but short term, things looking a little bit more bullish. If you're interested in this first micro-macro cross, or even the Falcon trend change signal, you're going to be looking at covering the trade fairly deep in order to make this trade work. And that now into yellow bars, so that puts our signal on hold again. We're wandering a little bit here this morning. Okay, now here on the Falcon, we're getting a late filter entry signal as well. So there's a little bit of bullishness creeping into the market. Technically, I would call this a counter trend signal, because the trend does seem to be down. I think we might have more success looking to the short side, but there is a trend change / late filter entry signal, which if it engages should reach our high probability profit objective. That puts us back in the thick of it, of the 62.95 area. Come on, get going. Come on. We're just hovering below the break-even trigger and our profit objective. This whole 62.95 zone, a really difficult price level. That's one we're going to want to make a note of. I think I can probably bring my stops in a little bit here. Put it below the secondary support zone. So it looks like we might be getting one more test of the extreme here. This first little one was a little bit more of a hiccup. The best stop is still here below this low, by the way. That's going to give you the most staying power in this trade, and it will obviously tell you when you're on the wrong side of the trade as well. All right, while we're waiting for that to play out, let's take a look here at the Raptor. Technically, the Raptor has not produced a number 2 signal just yet. It's something to look for when the market is in a trend. Whenever the trend looks like it's struggling or weakening, that's when you can be on the lookout for a number 2 signal. And the number 2 signal must always be preceded by a test of the extreme. The test of the extreme simply means we look for the market to retest the extreme price. In this case, it would be the low, and then we look for that reaction higher. So you could call this a number 2 signal, even though it did not print. It didn't print because the Raptor programming did not consider this little dip here to be enough of a retest. We may actually come away from this with a hard edge bounce. That's the number 3 signal. Obviously, I would like to see prices drift just a little bit higher, get back to that hard edge. All right, I may get a little ultra aggressive here with my stops. They're just taking a little bit too long to get the trade going here. What I'm looking at is I'm thinking, is this turning into a bear flag? If it is, well, then I expect it to break lower. I've seen the buyers try to rally the market from here, and I've seen the buyers try to rally the market from here as well. This is why I brought my stop up. If the buyers fail to rally the market at this point, well, then it's going to make a deeper retest, and short of leaving my stops below the low and trying to ride out the trade, I may as well take the early stop out. It all depends on what your strategy for the trade is. And I'm doing my best to give the trade every chance to work out. I'm doing my best not to strangle the trade, if you will. I'll roll my stops here to the high. If I see the high one more time, I'll take the break even. There's a real struggle here this morning for some momentum. Stinkers. All right, well, let's see now how deep they retrace. Was that a premature stop out? Was I a little bit too quick with my stops? Are they going to come down here and take out the lows? In which case, I won't feel too bad about my early exit. There is such a thing as a good loss, by the way. Okay, we're now producing a first micro-macro cross lower. We've got a number 3 signal here on the Raptor. Given the potential to change direction on the trade, a second push entry is advisable. Second push entry simply means we allow the signal to engage, and then we enter below, in this case below, the lowest price. Nice thing about a second push entry is that your stops can be relatively close. Again, given the current market condition, I don't think I'm going to go in for the full risk amount. Rather, I'll switch to manual mode. And then look to enter. You could also enter on the other side of the support zone if you chose, or you could wait for another signal to print. All those are acceptable. But honestly, the way the market is drifting right now, and you can see this is the range of the morning right here. We're trading right in the middle of the range. That's my least favorite place to get into a trade. Well done, Mark. Mark, a little bit more aggressive on that late filter entry signal. He says, I took that trade with you, but only ended up getting 2 ticks over my entry. I did make 10 points on the first one to the downside on 2 cars. That was a very nice trade right there out of the open. So Mark says, I'm up 437 on the day so far. Well done, my friend. Nice job. Okay, working a possible first micro-macro cross here on the Hawk as well, and a green bar sell on the Eagle. These tend to be fairly high probability trades also. At the very least, we can look for a little bit more of a test of the extreme, I would think. All right, so this trade a little bit more in trend now. What I'm going to try, because of my earlier loss to the upside, I'm going to see whether the market actually has some downside to it. One thing about a losing trade, you may have lost money, but hopefully you gain some valuable information for your money. In this case, I'm hoping the market is telling me it doesn't want to go higher today, that it would rather go lower. So we'll see if that's the case. Then there's no harm in trying to stretch out your profit target a little bit. So far, so good. Wow. Do we actually have some downside momentum here? Okay, stops at break even. Ooh, I'm thinking I should run this one out further still. Are we going to see 3 zones here? Is it going to get all the way down to 62.60? Uh-oh, look at that. Flinch just a tick before my profit target. Oh, you stinkers. This now the retest of the breakout. This, the confirmation, if you will, that the market is committed to the short side, and maybe I will if I can get the market to turn one more time. Maybe I will try to run it out. We'll look for the big move, 3 full zones, 1, 2, 3, and I will use an ultra aggressive bar high low stop strategy. And there we go. Okay, so I got a little bit of profit protected. If the market waffles at this point, well, obviously it's going to stop me out. If it continues, there is a decent chance that I may actually get down here to 62.60. And we won't make it work too hard. Come on, take out that zone. Yes. Thinkers. Okay, I'll roll it my stop a little more aggressively. Good job, Mark. Mark says 3 and done. Took that trend change on the Falcon and picked up another 225. Nicely done. Mark says it's almost scary how the first hour of trading has been so good lately. It seems that's the only time we're getting any volatility is that first hour, hour and a half. Just looking back in the charts earlier, the afternoon session, which typically is a little bit on the quiet side, it seems to be a little quieter than usual. Come on, one more bar. Just one more bar. Okay, 2 more bars. Okay, good to know. Scott says 63.21 is my fib extension. Is that where we bottomed out? 62.75. Well, at any rate, it turned out to be a nice little trade. Almost made it to the next support zone. It's now bouncing on the underside of the support line, which should be like resistance, but honestly, I did not want to try to hold on that long. My nerves won't take it anymore. That was a decent little trade. Help offset that earlier loss and actually bank a little bit of profit. Yes, Mark says, no, that was a nice move lower. It certainly was, and atypical for the way the market's been trading recently. Here was that green bar sell signal on the eagle, which also tends to be a pretty decent move or offer us decent opportunities. The green bar sell, not to be confused with the green bar sell on the hawk, which is not a strong signal, tends to be a fairly reliable signal on the eagle. It occurs when the market encounters the hard edge. Sometimes it will fudge it a little bit, but this one is practically textbook. And now the buyers showing up, giving us a quick little counter trend move. So the two elements, again, of a counter trend signal. First, you have to have something resembling a trend, which we do. And you need to have a test of the extreme. In this case, the extreme, the low. Check, got that. So we have a counter trend signal, and target is here, the hard edge. So it looks like we're going to get back to the lows of the opening range, somewhere around that 62.80 area. Well, we got lots going on here this morning. Look, now another first micro macro crossed higher, an early trend change signal here on the Falcon already. Anthony says, what's happening? Well, we just caught a nice little move to the downside off of our hard edge bounce signal here on the Raptor in the NASDAQ. And now we're looking at a counter trend signal that's probably going to try to get up here back to the hard edge. Sure, Frank. Frank asks, please show that green line again and what indicator that is. This line right here, folks, is an add-on. It's the initial balance lines from Indicator Warehouse. So if you happen to find yourself at the Indicator Warehouse website and you go here to the little search button and you type initial balance lines, you can learn all about them here, and you can get your handy dandy moon phase indicator while you're at it. The initial balance lines, I simply have it set to highlight the opening high and opening range low. You can also set pivots, I think, with it. This is all that I use it for, though. You have to set your start time and the length of your opening range, which I deem to be a half an hour from the open. Open is 6:30 a.m. my time. And this will show you the highs and lows of that first half hour of trading. The logic is that the big players in the marketplace get busy early. And as such, the first half hour of trading is probably going to be the most influential. Not just for the current day, but even for previous days. So if I'm just going to highlight this line right here, which was the low of opening range yesterday, and this is the high of opening range yesterday. I know I'm getting a lot of lines going on here. Try not to make it too confusing. So you can see out of today's open, well, they kind of hovered around the opening range lows from yesterday. Didn't really influence it as much, but sometimes you'll see the market come up and hit those opening range high and lows right on the number. Today's opening range low was respected on the breakout, but this is not because it was the low, but rather because it was a support zone. We see this all the time when markets break out of trading ranges or channels. We look for that breakout and we look for the retest, then we look for the recommitment to the breakout. And this again, practically textbook this morning, as the market made that retest, gave us a signal. This part of the move right here was the most predictable part. You could have easily gone on board here with a few extra contracts and at least found your high probability profit objective. So if you have the patience to wait for those kinds of things, you will be rewarded. Problem is, patience tends to be in short supply. Oh dear, look at me. I cannot multitask. I cannot talk and work my charts at the same time. So if you're interested in that, the initial balance line's very, very helpful for that. And like I said, you can plot pivots, I believe, as well. It has several pretty decent features. To help with your trading. Now we're back here to the hard edge. So it could follow through on that number 2 signal. The buyer's getting a little more serious about doing something here this morning. During this pullback here on the Raptor, we also got a early trend change on the Falcon. We got a first micro-macro cross on the Hawk. We have a regular plethora of signals this morning. You Raptor owners may want to make a note that your number 2 signal is going to be more reliable when it follows a number 3 signal. See up here, your number 2 signal followed the number 1 signal. Didn't follow through. Yeah, good follow through higher here this morning as well. Yeah, Mark says the Falcon and Raptor giving some decent signals this morning with good follow through. And it is a welcome change. That is for sure. getting a little stronger now on the buy side, it appears. A little bit of a transition perhaps, so things could get a little bit bumpy. Oh, Mark tempting fate here. He says, I couldn't resist the trend change on the Falcon, picked up another $100 on one contract. I think it's time to stop, at least for me. You know what I think is interesting about Mark's comment there is not that it was a profitable trade. Good on you, Mark, that you were able to turn a profit out of that. But rather, okay, Mark's looking at this. He's kind of hit his quota on the day. So there's the trend change. Hit his quota on the day, but it's looking like a high probability signal for him, and probably one that he can get in with a reasonable amount of risk. But rather than go and trade it for the full risk amount, he only goes in with a single contract. So if it doesn't work, okay, fine, I didn't burn the house down. And if it does work, hooray for me. There's a lot of trading is done between your ears. You need to, I'm going to use the word strategize, but it's not strategizing in the traditional sense, but you need to be thinking about what you're doing. I've said it before, we're not on a production line here. Our job is to wait for the best opportunities and then to capitalize correctly to try to take advantage of those opportunities the best that we can. Okay, we got a little bit of a reset now, which is to be anticipated. The market did encounter the hard edge of the trading band, both here on the Eagle and the Raptor. The Raptor should produce a number one signal, that's the cloud crossover, if in fact this new trend is going to stick. So that's something you can keep a lookout for. Have a macro pullback signal now on the Hawk, working a possible late filter entry signal here on the Falcon as well, so things starting to look a little bit more bullish again. Don't have the warning dot yet on the on the Falcon. Any buy attempts right now are, I would still consider counter trend. You know, as a market changes direction, it tends to build a little bit of a, what they call a broad top or broad bottom. Tops tend to be a little bit longer than bottoms. Bottoms can develop a little more quickly. But even so, it's not unusual to see the market move in a little bit of a sideways fashion before it changes direction. You can see here was a very small bottom. This one much more pronounced. But if that's what we're getting, if the market is getting more bullish, we can anticipate the bottom to retest the low and then swing higher, and that will give us a pretty good indication which way the market is intending to go. Okay, here the Raptor now producing the cloud crossover signal. It hasn't given me the signal prompt yet, and that's probably because the clouds are not fully crossed. I can still anticipate this as a cloud crossover signal. It has all the elements. The clouds are 90% crossed over. We've had the pullback back into the cloud, and it looks as though the market is trying to support the new direction, and I have the added benefit of a second push entry. This is a tough spot for the market. You might want to make a note of 62.80. That's going to be a fairly influential price, I think, next few days, or tomorrow anyway. Wow, what a tug of war. You could even bracket this. Buy a breakout higher, sell a breakout below the 62.82 area. Sure, Anthony is asking, can you take a look at the Aussie dollar, please? I will do that for you. 1 second while I load up the chart. So the Aussie dollar, fairly bearish yesterday, kind of holding the support at the moment. We got something resembling a triple bottom and a break above this last swing high. Normally we see two pushes in the direction of a breakout. So if that's the breakout, there's move number one. We should anticipate move number two, although the market doesn't usually drift quite this low after a breakout. Maybe it'll turn out that was push number two there. So a little bit of a sideways day for the Aussie dollar at the moment, but it'll be getting late in their session now too. Things get a little bit more active for them in about 10 hours time, 12 hours time. Yeah, Anthony says I'm looking at 75.90 for the Aussie dollar. I'm actually bearish on the Australian dollar as well. The Australian dollar and Canadian dollars tend to move together, and Canadian dollar almost always weaker in the winter months. All right, so my trend change signal never really developed here. I'm going to close that out. And again, just the very sideways nature of a market in transition. Oh, way to go, Anthony. Anthony says I'm done in the NASDAQ. Hit my target. Good job. That's right. Anthony says tomorrow's another day. That's a good attitude to have. You don't want to, if you have an open profit, you certainly don't want to give that back. It's a terrible feeling, and we've all been there, where you have a profitable day and you just don't have the good sense to stop trading. So the Raptor actually produced a crossover signal to the short side. And I suppose we could anticipate a larger retest of the low. The overall trend does look bearish. A second push entry is always advisable when the market seems to be laboring. And that just allows you to get in on some renewed momentum. So you look for the market to print the signal, you look for the signal to react, for the market to flinch, and then you look at taking your order. All right, you are, Mark. Mark giving kudos here to Anthony. He says, well done, Anthony. That late filter entry to the downside hit its target. That would be this one right here. Mark says, didn't take it, but just a testament that you could have made your morning just trading late filter entries in either direction. Absolutely. It is a very, very reliable signal. Now, that doesn't mean it's 100%, folks. When I say reliable, that's what it means. It's reliable. It's not 100% money in the bank. All right, so the buyer's showing up here. Again, this is the second attempt to rally the market, so it's obviously not a good time to be selling. As traders look for some sort of direction. All right, here come the buyers again. So the sellers making an attempt to move the market lower. The buyers coming back. We've got almost a first micro macro cross on the hawk. We've got an early red bar buy here on the eagle. Looking for a trend change now on the falcon. You could have called this an early cloud crossover on the raptor, but I'm going to try to avoid getting too quick on my entries and actually wait for the signal to develop. A signal to develop. And then I will try the market to the long side. Oh, come on now, play nice. Stinkers. Look at them go. So it looks like we're going to try to recover to the high of the morning, which is going to put us, well, right back here in the 6,300 neighborhood. Good question. Russell asks, do we have a rule of three here in the Eagle? Yeah, actually, you could have certainly called that a rule of three. We only had two counter trend signals, but we had all the components. Again, counter trend trades, you need to have a trend first of all. The rule of three starts printing signals against the dominant trend, in this case, the band suggesting the trend is down. We produced two counter trend signals, but we did have a test of the extreme. That's very important. And a nice rally as a result. So yeah, good eye. Now's the big contest for the market. Who is truly in control now? Sellers pushed the market down early, buyers rallied it back up. We're pretty much back where we started the day, so overall it's a wash. Lots of good opportunities this morning. It's a nice change, truth be told. We do have a first micro-macro cross here in the hawk. It is a high probability signal. The only problem I'm having with this trade is where am I going to cover it? I don't feel really good about covering it below the low there, although it looks like that's going to work. I probably would have ended up covering it back here somewhere. We finally get a crossover buy here in the Raptor. That's the #1 signal. Same problem as the first micro-macro cross signal that we were just looking at. In the hawk, it's where do I cover the trade? If I cover the trade right here, I'm pretty much asking to get tagged. The ideal stop is down here. You could also get by probably with a stop near the hard edge. But what I may do is hold out for a retest of the hard edge. Look for that #3 signal. Proof that or some sort of indication that the buyers truly have control here. And the only way I'm going to get that is to see how far the sellers can move the market. Oh dear, did I wait too long? I thought for sure I was going to see a deeper retest. I felt better about buying on a deeper retest, but oh, look at that. They're going to leave me behind, scoundrels. Come on, get up there. $63.01, our primary resistance zone, pardon me, primary support zone. And we're getting a little bit of a hiccup there. If you are in this trade, at the very least, I would think you want to bring your stops below the 62.90 area. No reason to leave your stops way down here still. If you're running on auto break even, well, I think your auto break even would have been hit given that we're only a tick from the profit target. Come on, get up there. A little more consolidating. If this bar finishes bullish, I think I would be inclined to bring my stops up to break even if you are not already there. All right, my stops would be at break even now. If the buyers can't hold it together at this point, well, they're probably going to falter. Come on, get up there. I know you're not supposed to be rooting for the market. It's usually a sign of something that newbie traders do. Come on, let's go. Can't help myself sometimes. All right, well, it looks like I would have got a break-even tag there, which is a shame because it came within a tick of my profit objective. That darn support zone just a little bit strong. Ooh, maybe a break-even stop was a little too aggressive. So there's the original trade. And they're going to make another run at it. Or maybe not. Well, that's starting to look to me like the buyers are really struggling to get above that 63.01 zone. This may end up developing into a bull flag as prices could drift a little bit lower here. Right now, I would still have to call it a bull market, at least for this half hour. We are closing in on the lunch hour too, which makes things a little bit less predictable. We do have a 4-arrow consolidation here in the Hawk. We have another late filter entry signal here on the Falcon. Problem with both trades is, where do I cover the position, right? At the very least, stop should go here. Ideal stop placement down here, at least initially. Like I said, this one's a little bit of a crapshoot because we're kind of getting a little late in the morning session. And there's been an obvious reluctance to get above 63.01 also, which is another way you could approach this trade. Is you could offer up a couple extra ticks from the signal and enter on the other side of 63.01. That would certainly allow you to get by with a slightly tighter stop. That would work. You are giving up about 3-4 ticks there to get your entry. The market seems to have lost its momentum. Now our trend line changing red again, our filter breaking up again, just kind of telling us that, yeah, we're kind of moving sideways. Hawk now back into yellow bars. So a little bit of a pullback here would not surprise me. Don't know if we're going to see the sellers actually regain the trend, or if we're just going to see the market move in a larger sideways trading range. But I think that's going to be it for the morning, and we'll do it all over again tomorrow. We'll get back together. If anybody has any questions, please type away. We're here for a few minutes still. Otherwise, we'll wrap things up for today. All right, great. No questions. All right, gang. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.